Wanted to welcome everybody this evening for joining us on a Strider Professional Development Careers panel. I'm Tara Sferzi, I'm the CEO of Strider. I'm joined here tonight with Natasha Springers-Levine, who is our Chief Operating Officer, as well as our featured guest tonight, Max Corcoran. We'll talk a little bit about her background in a bit, but right now her current title is USEF Eventing Elite Program and Team Facilitator, as well as Erin Gilmore of Erin Gilmore Photography. This evening, we will not have, unfortunately, Alexandra Sharubi from Equifit. She had a personal emergency and was not able to meet us this evening, but we will have some insights shared from her at a later point. So feel free to put your questions in the chat session. You have a little chat button on your menu for your Zoom, so go ahead and chat those messages. You can either chat the questions directly to Natasha Springers-Levine or to everybody. She's going to be compiling all those questions. We know you're going to have a lot of them. For our featured guest tonight, and we will have a Q&A session at the end of this. You can also watch via Facebook Live now or on demand after the panel discussion is over, but I would encourage you to stick around for the full thing because there's going to be some good insights shared in real time that you might not get the full benefit of if you watch it on demand. So without further ado, Max, Erin, thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's fantastic to have you here for the discussion. A little bit about both Max and Erin, if you guys have not had a chance to check out their bios. Max has a very extensive and varied background professionally in the horse industry. She started off roughly around the age of 12 as child labor, I think, for Bobby Costello.
Pretty much.
working early on in the barn, learning about horse care and how to take care of horses. She's had pretty extensive stints working for the O'Connor eventing team, traveling to the Olympics and other top competitions with them. She's also started her own business in sport horse consulting. She's worked as the organizer for multiple international horse trials, both locally and elsewhere. She's worked, I believe, for the Venezuela teams and the Canadian teams. So lots of international travel to career about. She could tell you about professions in other countries as well. And now she's working with the United States Equestrian Federation as well, after a very interesting stint as the president of the United States Eventing Association. So keep your professional questions coming at her. She's got a lot of diverse experience that she can answer to. So we're looking forward to hearing her insights tonight on that. And then, of course, we've got Erin Gilmore, which also has an equally diverse experience, and I think was at the Olympics at the same time as Max at various occasions, covering the Olympics as a reporter, a photojournalist, an editor, a writer. She's been a workflow manager. She's written for Practical Horseman, Heels Down. She's done Noelle Floyd as managing editor, Horse and Style magazine, Sidelines magazine, Riding magazine. She's done pretty much every media job that you can imagine. She's been to top competitions around the world, a wealth of experience in the media aspects and the photojournalism aspects as well. She started her own business about 8 years ago, I think.
4 years.
4 years ago, and is an active fixture now at major competitions throughout Virginia and elsewhere. As the person to know to make sure you look good on your horse. So thank you both for joining us this evening.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
So wanted to kick off tonight talking a little bit about your professional journeys. I touched a little bit on the highlights, and that's what's on paper. But I guess give a little insight into your career trajectories and what's not on paper, and a little bit about the decisions that influenced sort of where you went and how you went there. Erin, if you want to kick it off a little bit of how much of your life and your career has been by choice or by planned.
By plan, just in the sense that I always wanted to work in the horse industry and tried to figure that out by working as much as possible in different roles. I was very briefly a professional rider and then decided I was a very good amateur and that's where I should stay. But I was a groom for a little bit also for Peter Wild and worked in barns, managed barns, but started my writing career when I was young, when I was 20, with Riding magazine, who gave me a chance. So that was the luck. And then from there, I just continued getting published and worked for all those media outlets, and photography was by chance because it was good to cover things with images. So I learned how to be a photographer and went from there. But yeah, by saying yes to things and picking up and working in different roles really gave me the confidence to start my own business eventually.
And now photography is really your core livelihood, right?
It's my core livelihood. Yeah, I write a couple articles a year still, and I still have all my media connections. So, but yeah, photography keeps me very busy.
Did you think that you would be a professional photographer 15, 20 years ago, or did you think it would be a different?
No, I didn't. And it's funny, one of the first pictures that really like made an impact on me was that where I thought, okay, maybe I could do this, was in 2012 at the London Olympics, where I was a journalist, not a photographer there, but still had a credential, and shot through a fence. I remember I shot Max with Mr. Medicott. She was a groom in London coming
One of
at
my,
me
it's
after
still
the show jumping.
probably my most favorite picture that I
Right.
have of me with any of my horses. Is such a great shot. It is
So
such
that
a great
was
shot.
10 years ago now. So sorry to date us, but we're old. And, but that was one of the pictures when I was still working for media outlets where I thought, like, God, photography is so powerful and so fun. And I can't believe I captured that. And, you know, when you have those moments, you think, well, maybe I can do this.
Right. And you got a moment that meant something to you, but also to the person who was actually featured. So that's
yeah,
win-win.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's a good transition over to Max. To talk a little bit about your journey. So we know that you both have been in the same places at the same time, but
I know, kind of random. I know it
Yeah.
was funny. I saw that picture, and actually my brother, who's not a horse person at all, found it somewhere and sent it to me. And then it must have been on some publication, or I can't remember how he found it. And it's just a wonderful shot of the two of us walking out of the show. He just after he finished his second show jumping around clear, and just walking away. And it just that moment that you remember so well with your horses when you're lucky enough to be around these amazing animals and at an Olympic Games, and we finally got it done. And it's a great shot. It's just such a great shot. I love that. It's one of my favorite pictures of the horses of all time. But yeah, I mean, my yeah, it's been an interesting journey from where I started. I mean, I always wanted to do, be around horses. I come from a very non-horse family, but the horses were really important to me. And I competed up through training level. I wasn't brave enough and wasn't going to have enough financial stability to be able to do it. I think also too, once you do it at the top level, you realize that you yourself in your heart can't do it at a lesser level. And not saying a lower level, you can do it at a lower level, but you're never going to skimp on your horses. And so then you're thinking, well, if I can't do it right, I shouldn't do it at all. So I made that decision kind of early on, and I went and worked in downtown Boston for 5 years. I worked at a investment company for 5 years and learned a lot and loved that, but I didn't really want to commute anymore, and I wanted to get back to the horses. So I went and I did that. And, I have been very lucky along the way, and meeting great people and been given some opportunities and took a couple of chances, and it's really has paid off for me. I mean, this was never a trajectory. Again, I wanted to do something in the horse world, and there's so many things besides being a professional rider. What did they say? I think of the entire horse industry, I think 4% of them are actually riders. There's a statistic about that, and I think it's something really shockingly low between people that run horse shows and farriers and vets and grooms and trainers and parents and people that work at the different federations. It's photographers, journalists, everything, people that make the cross country boots or the blankets or whatever, saddles. And there's so much to do in our industry and still be around them, that without that core, there would be, those riders wouldn't be able to do what they're doing either. So it's this sort of team around in a bizarre way. It's still a team around the horses, isn't it? Yeah.
Did you consider, I mean, obviously you've popularized the term professional groom, and there's been a
Yes.
lot of education around that, of what the professional grooms have to offer as being part of the team. Did you envision when you first started that professional groom, that you would be at basically the tip of the spear of that educational push?
Well, I mean, no. The simple answer is no. I mean, I've always wanted to continue learning, and I think for me, one of the biggest things, Karen and David were, when I working for them, they were so big on teams, and that the groom is as important as the rider, is as important as the owner, is important as the guy that mows the gallop, as important as the person that makes the grain for the horses. And so they were so good on, always wanted to allowed me to go and teach people, and we'd have people come in, and they wanted that for everybody, and they are, they're very involved with the federations and the associations, and we're really adamant about all of us giving back somehow to our sport, whether, I mean, it owes it, it's so that is something I want to do. I remember I was watching football with my friend John Holling, and I said, oh, I think we need to do this. I think we need to get better with this horsemanship, and it's just lacking, and we need to do that. And he said, well, okay, well, then you need to come to the convention and pitch it to people. I said, no. And he goes, yes. He's like, here, have another beer. I said, oh, okay. And then he convinced me to go and sort of, pitch this thing. It was when the convention was in Arizona, and I was absolutely petrified about getting up in front of all the other professional riders and said, look, I think this is something we need to do. And they were all, yeah, this is a great idea. This is super. And obviously it's, you get busy and it takes time, but we've got the Eventing Grooms Association that's going now. And there's the International Grooms Association, which I'm part of too, which is really exciting. And, just being part of that and proving that it's not just playing with horses, that it is a professional job. It does have a lot of clout. It is a lot of hard work. And it should be as respected as the riders, I think. So it's been fun to see that evolve, and hopefully it will continue to evolve and get bigger.
Did you see the coverage they got in Denmark and the live stream?
It's so great. Yes.
That was
yes,
crazy.
It was
Great.
Yeah, it was great. And it's good to see even yeah, and even when they're announcing the teams, the grooms are listed with the horses, which is a big deal. And but yeah, and Hernig, and hopefully they'll do it again in Bretoni, that it's like, such and such a horse ridden by da 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 da, the horse is looked after by so and so, picture and the whole thing. So yeah, it was really great to see that and be part of that.
So it was a first.
It absolutely was a first. Yeah, the woman that runs the British Grooms Association and heads up the International Grooms Association, who actually has a seat on the FEI board now, which is really, really cool. Thanks. So it's come a long way. It's really cool.
Quite the professional accomplishment too, to be able to say, like, my efforts have resulted in this too.
Well, it's not mine, it's a whole group of us. I just sort of kept trying to keep at it.
So there's a lot to be said for being an advocate, though. And, being able to have that portion of your career and say, hey, there's some advocacy aspects to it. So that's, it's a little bit of the next topic, which is, the journey from figuring things out and being part of the team and figuring out a little bit of the plan trajectory. You both started businesses. Max, when was your business started? You have a sport horse consulting business, correct?
Yes, it's that started when I finished working for Karen and David full time, and that sort of encompasses everything from people asking me what they should be doing with their horses with rehab and that type of thing, and all the way to helping organize some competitions and doing that. So it sort of encompasses a lot of things.
So it's a common trend, but we were going to have all three of you, but all of you have started your own business. So it's an interesting career that you've started off having a variety of different experiences, but you've also found it to be productive to have your own business and have the ability to steer that business and have a degree of influence over where it's headed as well, while you're also contributing extensively to other people's businesses.
Yeah,
so that's
the ability to steer your own business is huge and great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this kind of segues a little bit over to what we were thinking about. You mentioned a little bit of the money of having to ride professionally and what that takes. Natasha and I talk a lot to a lot of working students, and they'll come to us and they'll say, oh, how can I get a sponsorship? How can I get this? Do you know any barns that want to sponsor us? Do you know any riders who want to sponsor us? Do you know any companies that want to sponsor us? And there's often a cognitive disconnect of how much money you need to have in order to compete a horse. And what that budget is. And so there's a little bit of financial planning that goes into people's careers at a certain stage in their lives where they know they have to put food on the table and they can't continue living out of the back of their car. And that's a little bit of the journey to professional whatever of, if you're not going to live out of the back of your car, and we've probably all done it at one point or another, at what point are you financially self-sufficient? The stress about reliable income, the stress about financial stuff, how much of that has played a role in your career journey? do you think it should play a role in professionals around the horse industry? And this goes a little bit to some of the larger discussions we've had in the industry about paying a living wage when you have folks working for you and making sure that they have benefits and things like that. As business owners, can you share a little bit about how your views on the financial considerations of a career in the horse industry maybe has evolved or changed over time? Erin, you want to kick that off a little bit?
And it never got good for me until I started being in control of my own destiny. I mean, I did everything from go to Europe with bags and $200 to my name to go be a groom and get experience. The experience that then gave me credibility when I went back to California and got a job as an assistant trainer, but I was also a copywriter. I was also a equestrian reporter. I had 3 jobs. Being willing to work 3 jobs is key, but I always hate seeing coaches say, well, just work hard. There'll be opportunities. It's the hard workers. They get it. In the middle of Wellington, where everything is $500,000 that you're sitting on, and there's just no chance anyone with normal income, even a normal income will really get there. So, for myself, when I determined that I was not going to be a rider and looked at what was outside of being a rider, I mean, I'm a rider, a lifetime rider, and I always will be, but a trainer, a professional rider, I thought either I'm going to go to Wellington and be a rider and make it, or I'm going to go to Wellington and I'm going to be in media and make it. One of those 2 things is going to happen. I'm going to work really hard at both of them until I have a path, and the path was media. I was more successful. I could actually make money doing that. Did I work less? I don't know, but that's the decision that I made. And I found that, like you said, there's this entire huge industry outside of being the trainer on the horse that is really beneficial and really helps. And because I've lived through it, I'm able to hire, a team of people now to work for me. And I do my best to pay them better than anyone else pays them, but more importantly, to treat them better than anyone else treats them and build their own confidence and community. And that's a benefit I can offer. And so I work hard at that too. I think that deviated to your question, but.
No, that was spot on. It's a question of, treating people obviously throughout the horse industry. There's not as much professional accountability in the horse industry, because if you are constantly not, Max, you mentioned you worked in the corporate world, you've got performance appraisals, you've got this, you've got that. Not as much of that in the horse world. There's a lot of people who make up the team, but they're not undergoing that sort of standardized, I need to have a license for this, I need to have accountability performance appraisals. And so it does turn into a little bit of a, hallway conversation of, is this trainer good to work for? Is this farrier good to work for? Is this vet a, honest vet? Questions like that, because you don't always know it. And so when you're
I think
thinking,
it always will be, but if you're a good honest worker, an honest person, and you build your reputation by being out there and present and good connections. My connections now reach back 20 years and they still have lasted and helped just keep my career going and keep it strong, no matter if you're a farrier or any kind of professional in the industry.
I would totally agree with that. Just your constant getting to know people and knowing the right people, and you learn that along the way, and that's the way it is in any business. Who are the people that are around you that you can rely on, and who are the people that you may have to be around, but you don't, not to rely on them. I think that's a very good. There's definitely people that your sort of team around you of your, not necessarily who you're working with, but people that you can trust and know that they're going to put you in the right places.
the relationships of basically somebody is going to tell you something honestly, quietly, or have your back if you're not there to support yourself.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So important.
Any thoughts to share with the audience about at what point a rising equestrian professional wants to start thinking about the financial aspects as opposed to, or at what point does that come into effect? At what point do they say, hey, I need to have my own business. I need to be thinking about asking for a sustainable wage. When's the right time to start
Day one.
Yeah, I was going to say day one.
Minute one. Don't go to Europe with $200 to your name. It's really hard. Okay, just telling you.
Yeah.
Don't stand on the train platform with $5.
Yeah.
All advocate for yourself the sooner you can do that, the better off you're going to be. And without being pushy, but advocate for your own well-being so that you're better at what you're doing.
But I see, especially in the eventing world, that's where I am, is that there are a lot of people that are going out as young professionals that don't have the knowledge and don't have the experience about running their own business. And as soon as they get a logo, they stick it on the side of their trailer and they get a t-shirt with it on, and off they go to be a professional. And there's not so many, and I don't know where the gap is, there's not that many mentorships or internships per se, you know, where this person is a protege of this rider that's come through, and you just don't see that much anymore. And there's a lot of lack of knowledge when those people go off on their own. And I get that they want to do their own thing and they want to set up their own businesses and work for themselves, but there's a huge opportunity miss for a lot of younger professionals. And also, you know, that's another thing that a lot of those guys, good professionals, will do when they have these guys they're mentoring, is they show them their books and tell them how it is, and everything from, you forget that just you purchase the horse, right? And then you've got which is usually a substantial amount of money, and then it's feeding it and shoeing and vet, and that's in all that, that's even before you decide to enter competition or get any lessons yourself. And then you have to buy a truck and a trailer, and then you have to insure that, and then you have to insure your groom to drive it so you're not the only driver on it. And then of course you got to put new tires on it. Then you have to have the ability to put a new tire in it, because eventually you're going to blow a tire, because that's just what happens. Oil truck, changing the oil. Do you have another car so you're not driving your truck all the time? I mean, it just keeps going. Then that's before you house yourself. And then you've housed yourself. And then if someone's working for you, then you have that housing you have to do. And they're kind of a slob, so you actually lose your deposit. So it keeps going and going and going. And it's a lot of financial that people probably don't always think about. I mean, it's glamorous and it's fun, but you can, learn, understand how that all works, insurance, all that kind of stuff, workman's comp. I know some professionals that have been caught out by workman's comp, and not their fault at all, and just because of what state they're living in, and it's state by state of what you have to have. And it's tough, it's not easy. But yeah, from day one, if this is something you really want to be a professional, and then also presenting yourself as a professional, and making sure and yes, maybe you hate to wear shoes when you go somewhere, but you know what I'm saying, but like, you gotta look the part, you gotta look at the same time, because I remember we had a working student for us that had a tongue piercing, and David said to them, "Are you sure you really want to keep that tongue piercing?" And they said, "Oh yeah, it's really cool." This was a while ago now, and he said, "How are you supposed to ask someone to buy a horse for you when you have your tongue pierced?" And she sort of got really mad and huffy and went away, and she came back the next day and had taken it out. And she said, you're right. It's, again, it's how, again, it's not, you think that that's the person, you don't want that person as a client that's going to judge you like that. But at the end of the day, you got to decide what you want.
Don't you think we should have like a better culture of transparency? When I was working as a professional in barns, like there was so much mystery surrounding so much that trainers hid, and people have for years. That would have given such a leg up, be attracted to the people who actually will be transparent about the outing, the workings of the business. Feeling like you don't know the answers to everything and it's just a mystery and you're cleaning stalls and trying to figure it out is like really hard. So
it's really hard. It's working for the right people or getting mentored by the right people, for sure, I think it's critical.
It's critical.
And knowing who those people are that are secure enough in their business operations, and they're willing to say, "Hey, listen, I just spent $17,000 on hay and sawdust this year, and this is cost me to repair the fence lines. And oh, by the way, I'm losing money in my boarding operation. It's not as successful as you think. And I'm making this much money on this. And, you have to have 4 business units in order to actually make money on this." And that takes a very secure professional to admit that while they may be fantastic riding the horse, running the business is a different skill set.
And I think too, we always forget that we're sort of, as a worker in a barn and stuff like that, we sort of live in a lifestyle we can't afford, if that makes sense. The people that own these horses drive really nice cars and they go out for nice dinners. They're like, come on out for dinner. And that's all great. But my going out for dinner and you're going out for dinner, there's maybe a few zeros in the bill that are a bit different, you know? And it's true. And yeah, you can do that as a treat every once in a while, but it is, you know, you're trying to keep up, and it's expensive to try to keep up too. That's definitely a big
But
thing.
it's fun. You've never gone on a
Oh
private
yeah,
plane to the GCT into
I
Paris?
know
Like,
exactly. It is really
totally
fun.
normal.
Yeah, yeah. There's definitely I've done things that it's like that is not my tax bracket.
Oh.
And sometimes, you know, it's okay to scorch the credit card and know, okay, I may regret that, but this is an
But no.
experience that I wanted to go out and I wanted to have that glass of whatever. And,
Yeah.
you know,
McLean Ward explained at one point why he doesn't like hire riders very often or working students, and explained it from a financial standpoint and explain how much it costs for him to get to the ring. He's one of the rare like show jumping professionals I've ever, you know, seen that insight from. And it was really, really interesting, and just spoke to just how wildly expensive everything is and how hard it is to bring up people.
yeah, we've definitely seen a willingness to open up the discussion a little bit more since COVID, because everyone suffered so much during COVID where they couldn't have people come to their barns and they were like, oh my God, this is how much money I spent last year. And it was all contract labor and I can't get a PPP loan because it was contract labor. So we've seen that discussions increase, you know, move a little bit to the right and productive, but there's still a degree of, you know, you have the young professionals that come in and you want the emphasis on, are you creating value? You can hang your placard out, but are you creating value? And people are going to pay you if you create value. They're going to give you money, but if you don't create any value, you're not going to have a sustainable business model in any stretch unless you're creating some sort of value. And sometimes that's missed in the eagerness to kind of set out your own shingle and have your own business operation. That sort of lessons learned and mentorship of how somebody like McLean Ward is able to keep a business for 25 years or 30 years because of the value he's bringing to the various entities and bringing it back. And that can definitely get a little bit missed, I think, in the translation.
Yeah. We can't all win Olympic gold medals. Like,
Right. So, and with that, you know, there's a lot of financial considerations that if assuming the vast majority are not going to be winning Olympic gold medals.
Yeah.
You know, and so how do you have a career where you know you're not going to win an Olympic gold medal, but you want to have that career, you want to be a farrier, you want to be a professional groom, you want to be a photojournalist, you want to be part of the massive team that supports $122 billion horse industry in the US and God knows how much in Europe. There's a lot of money in the horse industry, and most of it is in the support staff of people who are part of the team, who are part of the farriers, who are part of the vets, who are the vet techs and things like that. It's only a small proportion of it is the gambling on the horse racing industry. A lot of it is the selling of the horses, the buying of the horses, the breeding of the horses, maintaining.
well, what's the skill beyond showing up and working hard? You show up, you work hard. Those are the first two things, you know. Then after that, maybe you're talented. But organization, I think, is huge. You have to be, the more organized you are, the more successful you're going to be at whatever you're doing. Talk to me about 100,000 photos in 4 days. It's got to be organized. But that for me, I think it's gotten my business to be super successful in just 4 years, being organized and reaching out and making things happen.
Yeah. If you were reaching back to yourself at 25, do you think that would be one of the key points you would punch on? If you showing up, you're working hard, but you've got to be organized, because otherwise it's just creating chaos.
At 25 was when I went to Europe to try and see if I wanted to be a professional rider. So, you know, I didn't have much to organize. I was being brainwashed by Peter Wild's system of horsemanship, which was an invaluable lesson and changed my whole life. I love him. But yeah, he actually taught me organization. That his barn was a place where I relearned every single thing I had ever learned and came out better for it. So yeah, being organized and then just doing the work and seeing the things and deciding, you know, where I wanted to go with it.
And I'm just going to jump in, when you kind of transition to journalism and media, did you have someone who kind of mentored you a little bit, or how did you navigate that? Because we talked, I mean, we can throw like the in the barn horse industry under the bus a little bit for the lack of mentorship, but did you have that in that part of the industry?
Yeah, my first editor, Kim Miller, in Writing Magazine when I was 20 years old was my mentor and still is, and guided me through learning how to do that job and helped give me the opportunities to springboard into like national magazines, international stuff. And I try now to be that person to everybody who writes me a message saying, I want to do what you're doing. I respond to every email. I take phone calls, I meet people, I bring them onto shows to shadow me. And 90% of the time they say, oh, you're like the only person who responded to me and took the time. And the question is, why not? Why not take the time and help somebody who is exactly where I was and benefited from someone just, helping and saying this industry is big enough for all of us. And that's a theme in trainers, or at least it used to be. In certain areas of the country, this is a small little area. Don't take what's mine. Like it's my client, my horse sale. That's where transparency goes out the window. But in this industry, my part of the industry, I think there's enough room for everybody to be successful in it. And there's no reason not to share what I've learned to help other people be successful. And I've watched my colleagues go from, working in non-horse jobs to pay the bills to now working full-time in the horse industry. And that to me is super satisfying. So yeah, because I had a mentor at 20 in the form of Kim Miller, I know how that feels and I try and do that now.
That's awesome though. I feel like I remember you telling me about your plans to sort of take a bunch of people out on a cross-country course or something and really teach them what your thought process is. And I'm glad we were able to kind of circle around to it.
There's no way you can hoard the work on a cross-country course. Give me a break. It's 6 miles long. The more skilled people I have out there, the happier I am, and the harder I'll work to make sure everybody else out there who's willing to go stand in the sun for me is happy and feeling creative and enjoying the work that they do. I mean, you have to recognize how hard other people work, whether they're a groom in a barn or, a photographer or anybody. Like, you showed up for me today, I'm going to show up for you now.
Yeah. That was front and center at the Great Meadow International, where everyone on your team was smiling every time we ran across them.
Okay, good.
Those horses were thundering past. They were all smiling.
Because it's fun. It's fun. It's a fun job. It's super fun. I don't know about glamorous over the weekend when it was 90 degrees.
Not so glamorous.
It was fun.
Yeah, this weekend was
Max,
not that glamorous.
You'll be living the glamorous life. Talk to us about Italy. We're going to the world.
Real glamorous. Yeah, it's not that glamorous. I know. We keep laughing about it. That's going to be so much fun. I'm like, is it?
Yeah, I can't even imagine or begin to wrap my head around the role that you've stepped into, Max, with all of the moving parts.
Yeah, luckily for me, when I worked for Karen and David, I sort of helped organize and structure and do all that for them anyway. So it's a little bit that on a larger level. And one of the great things about between working for them, doing some stuff on my own, having done I finished up my USCA presidency in December, which is coming up pretty quickly. I've gotten to meet some incredible people along the way and have made some really good friendships with them, and have been lucky enough that they've mentored me a lot too. And I've been seriously lucky for that. That those sort of contacts and connections have really helped me with this new role with the USCF. So I'm feeling pretty fortunate that it sort of has all happened that way. The job sort of description sort of was pieced together, and they called me and asked me if I wanted to do it. And I thought, well, yeah, I guess I could actually do that. That would be kind of fun. So yeah, it is a lot of moving parts. And again, because I'm in the barns, and so I know all the grooms, and I can call them and talk to them, and I can all the details and what do you guys need and how can we get that done, and try to make it so they only have to worry about looking after the horses well enough, so then the riders only have to worry about riding their horses. So sort of the goal with that is to take all the equations, all the worries, all the questions out of it, so they can just be great, hopefully.
I kind of like that we're talking to two individuals, and like the team effort just keeps kind of coming up.
Oh, absolutely. Such a team. It is such a team effort. Everything is, you can't, Yeah, I mean, there's even with the USEF too. I mean, there's the crew at the, the people that work there full time. I'm technically contracted with them, and I can call and say, oh, hey, the flight got changed. Can you change all of our tickets? And there's a group that does all that for us, and they're invaluable. They've got all the details and knowledge and stuff too. So it's all of us together trying to make it all happen.
Were there any tips? You mentioned you got mentored even as recently as the last couple of years, which I think is fantastic.
Every day I'm getting mentored.
Yeah.
I feel like,
I think that's
every
really
day.
critical, because I think sometimes we
Yeah.
forget that even people who've been around for 30 years are still learning from other people. And
Oh
it's
my
part
gosh.
of that team sharing of knowledge.
Learning all the time, asking questions, finding out, sometimes you find that there's somebody that knows how to organize something better, or be better at this X, Y, and Z, and you take a page off their book, or someone says, hey, try this, and you're like, it doesn't really work for me. So, but now you've tried it, so now and you talk to people from other countries and ask them how they're doing things, and it's always, and even with the horses, I mean, we call and ask each other all the time, like, hey, I got one that's doing X, Y, and Z, or what did you do for the one that had the saddle that slipped back, or whatever. There's all those questions that you're constantly doing, and the poor vets, every time I get her out of bed, I'm like, okay, so I had this thing, here's a picture of it, what do you think this is, and I just love that, all the technology and all the research that's going on was for sport horses to make their lives better and stuff. And yeah, it's always happening and always evolving. And again, your paths cross with people that are great, and it's awesome. It's like I saw Erin this weekend. I'm like, hey, how's it going? So she could be like, hey, there's a hole at fence 5, and I'll be like, oh, hey, thanks so much. And she knows the importance of that, which is great. And so but she knows that I can be the person. It's all of us making things better for these animals, and for us too, I guess.
It's impressive too that you're both still looking forward. You've got the career in your trajectory, but you're still both looking very much, from what I'm hearing at least, and I think Natasha would agree with me on this one, you're both very much looking forward of like, okay, and now to the future, and now to the next thing we're going to learn, and now to the next project and the next adventure. I think that's pretty remarkable. Lots of times I ask people about, well, what do you wish you had learned back when? I'm not sure if either one of you have ever sat around and said, oh, I wish I'd learned that lesson 15 years ago.
I mean,
there's a lot of lessons.
Bookkeeping would be great. Bookkeeping from day one would have been nice, but
Bookkeeping would have been really nice. Exactly.
the boring
Yeah.
stuff, the stuff you don't want to.
Yes. Yes. All that, how to make sure you can afford your car, and budgets and stuff like that would be really, yeah.
Yeah.
If they
But I think a lot of it's just sort of your constant, just the way, thinking, trying to be, and you're not necessarily in your head, I'm like, I'm going to be better. I want to be better. But yeah, you do want to be better.
Yeah.
But you also want to learn more, and you get passionate about what it is that you're doing. And so that makes you want to continue learning. And if you did the same thing all the time, you're not getting better at it, I guess. I don't know.
That's how you know you found the right career, when you want to constantly, you'll never perfect it, and you're always trying to get better at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always an evolution of your skills. It's an evolution of the next stage. It's figuring out how you're going to actually get it to the next level effectively,
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why photography is great, because you can always try for the next perfect picture forever.
I have a feeling you probably landed a lot of perfect pictures this past weekend.
The courses were really, really nice. Yeah.
It was a very, very pretty venue. It was very pretty design.
Yeah. But now I can show other people there how to also, get the perfect picture and all of that.
To know. I'm jumping in again. So I kind of want to know, like, with the forward thinking mindset, what do you think that we can do to teach people who are into horses from a young age, maybe like current, teenage pony clubbers or whatever, that they should focus on these other tracks in the industry? You know what I mean? I think that a lot of parents tell their kids, you can only be a rider, and how do we kind of help kids and young people navigate their way to careers like you guys have had?
I mean, how old do you want me to sound? Like, get off the TikTok, wrap the legs, sweep the
Yeah.
bar around.
Yes,
No,
yes.
That all is fair.
Try different things and don't be afraid to have conversations with people. And hopefully there's more nice people than there are not,
Yeah.
you know.
Don't
try
be
to
afraid
one
to
of the nice
fail.
people. Don't be afraid to fail.
And
That's-
ask the questions. I mean, people say, I can never wrap a leg like that. I said, well, A, I did not learn overnight, and B, I wrapped 7,000 billion legs, and C, like, I didn't know. I was you too. We were all a person that looked at these things and went, I don't get it. It's all,
They're
it's all
just
scary.
pieces of fabric that came out of my dryer in big knots.
I know.
I don't understand how
Make
they're
sure you do your
supposed
Velcro up before you put them in the washing machine.
There you go. There it is.
There you go.
There you
Yeah.
go. Exactly.
That's why I love
Yeah.
eventing, because eventers are more doing their own work than other
Yes.
disciplines, and therefore they're more well-rounded. And other disciplines, any discipline of horsemanship should be entirely from cleaning the stall in the morning to riding through your competition day. You know, if you haven't pulled your horse out of the stall or pasture at 4:30 a.m. to go to a horse show at 8 and back home and driven it yourself, there's that thoroughness to it. And then there's, the narrow, you can only be a rider. So I don't know how many parents are saying you can only be a rider when they find out how much that costs. My mom was like, horse, job, you get horse. Like that was always,
Pretty much.
so that I had work ethics since I was 11 years old because of that.
I
But I think it's also important for people, if you do want to be in the horse industry, to do some sort of riding at some point, because then you understand the horse itself.
Yeah.
Like I know a lot of very good vets that weren't going to be professional riders, but wanted to compete to a level. So then when they were being a vet, they could understand if someone said, my horse feels this, and this is what I feel here, that they could understand that part of it. And Erin, as a competitor, she understands like the trajectory of a horse and how it's going to land and, and all that kind of, I think it's really important to do some riding, whether you're going to make a saddle or blankets or whatever, to have that background. But again, it's not going to be, there's only right now there are 13,000 plus members of the U.S. Eventing Association, and there are only 5 of those that are getting to go to the World Championships. And of those, there may be one, we can pie in the sky world, but that are going to be the gold. There's only one that's going to get to be the gold medalist, and that may or may not be from our country. So it's hard to tell. You can't, that's the reality. And with the Olympic Games, there's only 3 riders now, so it's a tall order. And
and I think that, well, it's sort of what you said about, continuing to ride or riding a little bit or something, but keeping a foot in the door in the industry, I think is really key. And I guess that's where I was a little bit going to with like the child parent dynamic, where parents are like, it's either horses or it's business school or whatever it is, and I think that it's maybe going to get easier through conversations like this for those young.
But just because you went, then you go to business school, and then you can go back to running your own business or running something. And, there's that part of it too. You can go off to school and use what you learned in school to do something in the horses, if it's really your passion, or you become successful enough that you can buy your own horse and do it yourself. There's that
the right way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I know people that have gone off to medical school because they said, I can't be professional and really want to do this, and my parents are pressuring me, but now I get to buy my own horse and I get to do it this way. And, so good on you.
You're living the dream with your new horse, who's not new anymore, I guess, but
1 year. Yeah. Yeah, I am. He's a great horse, and he's a 14 3-hand draft horse. So I'm thankful for that decision every single day. He's the best horse I've rode.
Exactly. But that's so great. You wouldn't have ended up doing, having that thing that makes you happy.
No, but for the first time in my life, my mom helped me buy it, and she'd never helped me with a thing ever. So
That's fun.
it took 40 years, but I hung in there and it finally.
Perseverance.
That's part of the journey too, is that whole financial aspect. That's
Yeah.
a tough translation to have with the parents. You know, the parents are looking at everything about this horse is going to cost money. You want to be a professional rider, that's just going to cost money. You know,
But also be transparent about it from the beginning, not like, yeah, I became a multimillionaire photographer and now I can buy fancy horses. Not quite.
It just affords you to be able to maintain that horse.
Yeah, right.
And even then, with a budget. Yeah.
And he has a job too. He's a Palomino. He's a model. Like he's
Yeah. Aw.
Wonderful.
he earns his value. He creates value.
Yeah.
He sits around and he earns his paycheck.
he earns his paycheck. Yeah.
There you
But
go.
We're working towards having a horse I can enjoy. I mean, I enjoy every horse, but I'm always going to be a rider. And that's part of my sales pitch as a photographer. Well, I am a rider. I understand your connection with your horse and I can show that in photography. It's a rare talent. I'm lucky to work with a couple of people who are not riders, who didn't grow up riding and can also capture that. And I've learned it and I've learned the horse movement. But yeah, I mean, the love for riding is what the common thread that really, like, that's what we all can relate to.
So then moving forward, you've got the love of the riding, you've got the community, and how do we keep these careers viable to pursue? And we've talked a little bit about the financial aspects, and we could probably spend 3 days just talking about, you know, living wages and sustainability and everyone learning bookkeeping when they go to Pony Club and understanding how to set a budget. I emphasize it a lot in the horse industry because I see it a lot in the horse industry where you have these young professionals who have no idea how to set a budget and have never learned that they need to have a budget to have a horse. But at the same time, it probably exists in other industries too. They just happen to have a salary. And so they learn the budget with a little bit of subsidy as a salary as they go along the way. Whereas in the horse world, I think it's a little bit more acute. How do we keep a professional career viable? Are they becoming more viable? Is that our pie in the sky? Max is kind of looking, maybe they're becoming less viable.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah. As a professional rider, you're saying?
No.
Or
Just careers
professional.
throughout the industry.
Oh my God, no,
Not
that's
as a professional
plentiful.
rider. You're both
Oh my
here
God,
because you're not professional riders.
Yeah, no, it's
Mhm.
plentiful. I think you just have to, there's opportunities out there everywhere. You just have to find your niche and get into it. And, you know, there's opportunities galore, depending on where you're living, what your discipline is, what your passion is, what your strengths are, you know, and, you know, there's all those things. There's so many, you know, in eventing, we're low on officials and we're low on organizers and we're low on grooms and we're low on a lot of things, and those are not riding positions. And there's so much horse shows. They're looking for people that can be, you know, work in the office, that can help set the schedules and do the entries, and you know it's, you know, it seems basic, but it really isn't. It takes a very good person to have the people skills and the organizational skills, and again, saddle companies and all those things looking for reps, grain companies looking for research people. It just keeps going and going and going and going. And, you know, and some of those industries are, you know, big. I mean, some corporations that sponsor a lot of these competitions are big, you know, big things that can lead to the next thing, into the next thing, into the next thing. You don't know until you are out there trying it and seeing what you want.
Yeah, out there and trying it is important, and following the thing you love the most. Like, I don't want to be a farrier, thank goodness, but I really want to be a photographer. So that's my niche. That's the direction I'm going. I meet other people who want to be a photographer. That's our niche. Like, we are all driven towards the same end goal. Huge opportunities. People always asking in my little niche, you know, can you shoot this? Can you shoot that? Can you take on this show? All of that. And the work I can't do, I refer to the people who I know are skilled, who I trust, who are in my community. So it's just about getting out there, trying it without knowing the end result, right? Trying it to see what happens and building from what happens.
I think those are two of the most constructive and positive perspectives we've heard in a long time. So thank you both for sharing. That is fantastic. So with that, I am going to turn over to Natasha, because there are a lot of people on this discussion who would like to ask you a few more questions. about your perspectives in the careers and the industry as well. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Natasha.
Not just butting in this time. So
adding to the conversation and the dialogue is how I would phrase it.
we had a couple audience questions come in. So I'll kind of run through them in the order in which they arrived. So this is a good one for both of you. Can you elaborate a little bit on the organizational tools that you found were vital and helpful when you sort of became or started your career? What are a few pieces of advice you'd give to a professional in our industry generally, on how to keep themselves organized? So
Like, other than my
Yeah.
crazy brain of and I need to respond to every email and
But I
drive.
think that's helpful, right? Because
I write everything down. I have my notebooks and they're dated. And I write everything down in my notebook, and it's pages of my crappy handwriting, but it makes sense to me. And the other thing I always do is when I was running a farm, I always had like a weekly calendar that I wrote every single thing down every day, what each horse did, if they got shod, if they got shots, if they got whatever, that thing. And then I always do a big yearly calendar and put everything I need up there to figure out where I'm going to be, what I can't be, what, those are my sort of big, but I have to write everything down because you're like, what was that number? And then, you just, for everything, writing it all down, even reminders for yourself, lists. I love lists. And even the best part about lists are crossing things off. It's so great.
When we finish a division in photography, we mark it green in the spreadsheet, and I have converted mostly everyone. Spreadsheet, did you mark it on the spreadsheet? We can't lose track. We're not going to solve mysteries here. So Google spreadsheets are my friends, and my flagging emails and email reminders and calendar reminders, because yes, I agree. You have to write everything down.
My God. I don't know really how you could be, on the reminders on my phone, I plug it straight in. As soon as I have to do something, I plug it in, because it's easy things. Even this, you guys had asked us to be a part of this a bit ago, and it popped up. I was like, oh gosh, that's right. I'm glad I wrote that down. It's because there's just a lot, because it's not just your horse life. It's, you gotta, your family and your home and your, whatever it is that you're doing, you gotta put it all down.
Keep the email as new until you respond to it.
I do that too. Yeah.
Otherwise,
keep it as unread.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Ask me how many unread emails I have right now.
Yeah.
But that's only because you've been in full horse show mode the whole week.
Yes.
So both of you get much of a pass on your unread emails right now. Okay, so I feel like we touched on some advice, but I'll read it since the question's here. Erin, what is some advice you'd give to someone who's trying to break into the equine media industry for the first time?
The more friends you have, the better off you are. To make friends with everybody and be nice and introduce yourself and get comfortable with that. I grew up as an extremely shy child, so I had to learn that personality skill, and I forced myself to introduce myself to people who I thought hated me, and they became my friends. And now they're my industry colleagues. So the more friends you can walk into a room with, who are going to treat you right because you've treated them right, the better off you are. And those all translate to work connections and publication connections, and then after that, getting published. So you want to get published, but to get published, you need to know and also be able to pitch and blind pitch with the assumption it's going to fail and pitch anyway. So pitching is always better than not pitching. Pitching and failing is better than not pitching.
That was like Max's "Don't be afraid to fail" from before.
Yeah.
Exactly. And Max, what about somebody who's trying to be a professional groom and start out on that path? Is it just as simple as getting a job in the barn? Like, what if they're a person who grew up, not taking care of their own horse or not having that experience? How do they begin?
I think you just need to be someone that's ready to learn, to be patient, to have, take on the experience little by little. I mean, I think you just need, and to find the right place. That's really important, where you're not going to just be a person that's mucking stalls and filling up water buckets. You need to be in a place where you can have maybe an older person and stuff. I know there's a great groom school down in Southern Virginia, the Equine Management Training Center, and they do a great job training people to have all the skills, and they help place people in jobs as well. And so, that's a great place to do stuff, just to learn if you don't know anything about it. Just sort of
And if you're
bum around.
not satisfied somewhere, to be able to move on, right?
Yes,
I was in barns where I
absolutely.
was like, good Lord, I'm bored. I'm not learning anything.
No,
So
yeah.
I left.
Don't be afraid to move on, and you can leave. And again, like you said, be nice to everybody, make friends, because those people might be the people like, hey, you're not happy. Oh, well, there actually is an opening at my friend's barn or at our barn or something like that. And
Right.
then it's the camaraderie that comes between it. When you're working with other people, I would say definitely try to go work at a place where there's other people your age. And that way you learn from each other, and you can, have each other's back a little bit too, which is nice. But definitely be ready to work hard and be ready to listen and learn.
I like it. Okay, so there was a multi-part question that came in, and Erin, I'm very interested to hear your answer with this one. It was directed at you, but so because you're sort of the horse show photographer who would sell people their images, how do you deal with people at big events who would maybe share their images with riders for free, or that sort of tricky?
Mm-hmm. It's helped me hone my communication skills big time. Either my script of walking up to somebody and saying, with a camera who's obviously taking pictures, and just introducing myself and being nice and saying, have we met before, and introducing myself as the official. And that happened 3 times this past weekend, and one was a girl sitting next to a horse owner who later messaged me to want to buy my photos. One was a guy who was videoing his friend, a rider, and is a rider himself, and has bought my photos himself. And when it is actually a person who's going to go out there and say, oh, I'm just going to share the photos, A, I think, is this going to hurt my business, and make a decision from there? And B, if I think it's, really annoying, I will say, this is my job. This is what I do. This is how I make money. Would you like to come learn? I will hire you. But what's your job? Like, I want to know what you do. So I rarely have to have those conversations. I have such an amazing customer base where sometimes the customers will go after the person for me, and I don't even do anything. They're like, how dare you? And so, but that is all from communication and communicating with people. And starting out very nice, because we're all here for the same passion. We're both holding cameras. We both love taking pictures, and not losing sight of that. I will never be mean or rude to anyone under 18 who is doing that. I will always assume that I have something to learn, or I have something to teach them, and maybe they want to learn. So being positive about it has just helped my reputation, helped my business grow at the end of the day, and not being like stingy, like there's not enough room in this little pond for all of us. There actually is. So
that's a great answer. And I think in all things, communication is so important.
Right.
So it's interesting that you're like, well, that challenge just helped me develop the skill.
Yeah. And I mean, it's like, great, try hard. I have 6 people out here on 6 miles. You can't do what I do. I've worked my ass off to get to this point, and I'll tell you how I did it. But like, you can hold a camera, one cross country jump all day long. Like, great, have fun. But I just covered the entire show.
Yeah. Yep. And looked good doing it.
Just a little sweaty, that's all.
Yeah. And I mean, I imagine, Max, that you have like really developed communication skills over the years as well. I mean, but you said too that you were at the O'Connors teaching as well. Like, that must have been interesting, because
I mean, the working students, Karen and David were really adamant about making sure the working students knew how to do all the things with the horses. And they were, the horses got trotted up after every gallop, and everybody did it together, and we all did all that. And so those guys that have gone through that program have all been, have gone on to be pretty successful professionals themselves, which is really cool. And so I would, teaching them, and, that was sort of part of my job was, they would say, one of the kids would come up and say, David told me to ask you about blah, blah, blah. David told me I need to get with you about this, or Karen said I have to get with you with that. So that sort of started me teaching stuff. And then people asked me to come and, do clinics, little grooming clinics or stuff like that. And I, do some of that. And actually Kat Hill and Emma Ford have really sort of done such a great thing with their world-class grooming clinics. And they do an amazing job. They have it set up so well. They've got great sponsors. They've written their book, and they're about to come out with a great horsemanship book for kids. I think it comes out at the beginning of December. So, there's that kind of cool thing, but the, teaching and just helping people. I mean, I get still the people call me all the time, like, I got this, what do I do? And type of, people sometimes send me pictures like, hey, these are the studs I'm using here. I'm like, I have no idea where you are.
I'm gonna need the weather report.
I know. I said, I have, they're like, oh, I'm at, Waradaka. I'm like, okay, like when did it rain last? I'm like, I don't even know what horse you're talking about. What level are you going? Like, but it's, I do love the teaching. I like to sort of, it makes the horses' lives better. It makes people feel better about themselves, and they want to know. A lot of adult amateurs, people didn't grow up in the barn. I grew up in the barn, and people are starting to learn how to ride later in life, and they don't know the questions, and they want to be more part of it. The owners want to be more part of it. They want to know something and be there and be, whether it's just, what my horse's favorite treat is, or why can't it eat this, or, they just want to know, and it makes them feel more part of it, to have a little bit of a connection. So, yeah.
Have those professionals that were working students gone on to be professionals now? Did they pay it forward? Did they have working students?
Yeah, I think a lot of them do. I mean, Will Fodry, Will Coleman, Lauren Nicholson, Hannah Burnett. I'm trying to think who else. Holly Hudspeth. She's not really riding much anymore, but because she's got a family now. But I'm trying to think of all the other people that have part of that group. There's just a huge group of them that have all come through at some point. And have just carried on to do working exact same thing. All have grooms that work for them, that they are, really good people, and they have a program, mentors, people that ride with them, ride underneath them. And it's great to see that. And I think the Karen and David are very proud of that, which they should be. That's sort of their gift to the eventing community.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. I mean, like, that's a legacy, if nothing else.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sinead Halpin. I'm trying to think of that. I was like Sinead Halpin and Rebecca Howard, and I'm trying to think of all the other people. There's been a bunch of them that have all come through at some point to do that, which is cool.
Yeah, you've got knowledge transfer there. That's pretty
Yeah,
awesome.
it's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Ingrained.
Erin, that's what you'll be for the photography piece.
I already am, Natasha.
Yeah, I know, that's what I'm saying.
One.
But in,
Absolutely.
30 years, we'll be having this conversation again.
And I'll be retired.
No.
You'll be pulled back in
Gilmore
as like an
photography.
advisor. What they used to call the old gray bears. You'll be pulled back in. Okay, back in the day, how did you do it?
Back in the day when things were right.
Work smarter, not harder. That's what I always say. And work for your future self. I say that a lot.
Ooh, I like
work
that
for your future self, because your future self at the end of the day doesn't want to solve problems and work hard. It needs to
This is my Erin Gilmore photo from
there it is.
my camera. Anybody can see it.
Oh
It is
yeah,
one of
we can see it.
my most favoriteest pictures that Erin took
It's a really
years
good
ago.
moment.
It's a very special moment.
I'm impressed
a
you
true
could pull it
gift to
up.
be able to get that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it.
I ran. I remember running.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you guys both so much for joining us and for sharing all of the things. This was fun.
I'm happy to be
Thank
here.
you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's nice to get to know Erin a bit better now that I sort of see her and wave to her. She sort of
we're always
comes
like,
by with her camera. Hey, it's a go. Can I get an order of go? Here's course map. Got to go by. So it's actually good to talk a little bit more.
Yeah, it's great. And I answer emails. If anyone watching wants to email me, I answer them eventually. I'm always happy to share what I know.
Folks,
I'm not that good at it.
we will be sending out the recording in the next couple of days, along with some contact information. But you've heard a disclosure from Max that she's just taken on a fantastic new position, and she's not very good at emails. So
No, and I
don't
will
take
get
it
my next 2
personally if
weeks.
she doesn't
My,
get back.
my next 2 weeks are not real pretty, so
She is going to be
exciting, but not very pretty. Yes, very exciting, but
over
not
to
very pretty.
Italy and everywhere
Yes.
else, and then
Yeah.
well, France before Italy, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll be
Be
enjoying
watching.
some fine wines, hopefully at some point in the adventure.
I know something. I'll eat some delicious pasta between between France and Italy. I'll probably come back about 20 pounds heavier. So
Between the bread and the pasta, yep.
I know
You got it on.
exactly. Yes.
Well, thank you both very much for joining us tonight. Everyone who's been watching and participating and sending in the questions, thank you all for joining us tonight. We really appreciate everyone's interest in learning from some of the top experts around the industry. We know that you're all very eager to learn from folks who have been there before and are happy to share their knowledge. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.